Hi everyone, it's Jess again, and today I would like to touch up on a topic that has been mentioned before in other videos. So we mentioned my grandparents a lot in the other videos. They pretty much raised me, um, seeing as my parents kind of were immature. Um, it seemed they were more focused on themselves and their relationship as opposed to a family. Um, at least at the time. Maybe towards the end, my stepdad, I think, figured it out. But my mom never did. Um, but my, to, I guess, put it bluntly, my grandma's a hoarder. I think it started probably um, with the passing of one of her children. He passed at a young age. I don't know what from. She didn't really mention him a lot. I knew he had a lot of health problems from what, like, both grandma and grandpa mentioned. He had hearing aids, from what I could tell, seemed to be some sort of like autism or something like that. Um, he really liked school buses. I do know that. Um, like fascinated with them. Um, but I think his passing really messed with grandma. Um, all of my aunts and uncles, and even my mom, mention how she treats them or treated them poorly, except for one. Um, except that one is both the oldest and was a military man. Um, him and I never really, um, I wouldn't say saw eye to eye. It would be funny to say that because he was significantly taller than me and still is. Um, but just, we're just different people. Um, and just, I, I don't think Grandma probably did as much to him as she would have to the others, from what I can tell from the way she talks about him compared to the others, um, and from the way they all talk about her. Um, but it seems like when I showed up in her life, I kind of became that lost child for her, especially with how my mom was kind of just shoving me at her all the time. Um, so we were pretty much just doing everything together. I remember I think my grandma was the one who potty trained me. Because I remember which bathroom. Um, I guarantee the McDonald's toys are still in the bathtub, next to the toilet that I don't think works because it didn't last I knew. I think they wanted me to unbury it to get it to where Grandpa could fix it, or my stepdad. Um, that was one of the goals at some point years ago. Um, but I remember every time I successfully pooped, I got a toy. Um, And I think that's how consumerism fell off of me, oddly enough, is through my grandma and seeing what it did to her. Seeing what her house looked like. Um, However, there were good things that we got to do with it together. Um, so every like October or November ish, um, she had a blue star that we would get out, and it was the signifier of like the seasons and like Christmas is coming and all of that. And for me, it wasn't really like Christmas or anything. It was just, I don't know, grandma's gonna spend time with me. We're gonna do stuff. Um, Maybe winter break. Maybe my parents are gonna spend time with me. They have time off of work, so probably. Um, but I we would always put that up every year in the window. And she also came up with, I don't know if came up with, but because she collected so much different junk, um, we did different rituals, I guess you can call them. So for Halloween, we had um, old, I think they were mayonnaise jugs from the school that she worked at. She cut holes in the top of them to put the big Christmas bulbs in. The ones that you shouldn't put inside because they, burn things. She would fill those jugs like halfway with water, and then she would put like jack o' lantern faces on them. And those lights in there would usually be orange or like purple or black or, Halloween colors, red maybe. Um, and then for Christmas, we would do the same thing, just without the like drawing on them, and we would just have all of the Christmas colors down her entire like boardwalk, like walkway thing. And I loved doing it because it both lit up the boardwalk and it looked nice. Um, that was a. We also, in the spring, she had a whole bunch of different things that we did. She had a couple different ponds that we put frogs, like plastic ones, and ducks out there. Um, and then she eventually built a fence or there was a fence, can't remember which, added on to maybe, um, to hide some of the stuff in the back. And then started hanging a whole bunch of decorations on that every year, but they had to come down at the end of the year, at least when I was around. So that was a thing that we did every like spring and fall, was put them up, take them down. Um, we actually came up with the idea to trace them with like a permanent marker or like right behind them what they were, so we knew where they went because she wanted it to be the same. And at the time, I didn't have a cell phone because I would think I was 13, maybe 12, I don't know. I just know I didn't have one. So we worked with what we had. We also, if I went to her house on the weekend because like my parents had a concert or just, said, fuck it, we don't want kids for the weekend, My grandma would be going yard sailing with her neighbor friends. Um, and she would ask if I want to go sometimes, usually most of the time. And sometimes I would, and it was fun. They would all treat me like one of them. I would join in the conversations. I literally no different than any of them. It was nice. Um, um, I can say going to school with my grandma working there was a little weird, because she didn't work in like a classroom. She was the person though who gave everyone detention. Um, so she worked in like the lunchroom. It was like a lunch aide, and a lot of my friends misbehaved during lunch, and that's when they got detention and written up and all of that. And then she would mail them all out at the end of the day. And guess who would help mail all of those out? Uh, so I got to see pretty much everyone in the school who got written up every week, every day. Um, Sometimes I would know what for, other times I wouldn't. Um, there would also be times where I'd have to help her figure out how to get like her computer working because she was old, and her house doesn't have internet, and she doesn't use a computer. Um, Her husband does, but he uses it to play solitaire and like those things, and it runs Windows 98, and no internet hooked up to the house at all. So, um, good luck figuring out anything current. Um, so, Going to this school though, other than mailing out letters of detention and all of that, I got to help her water her plants that she stored there, because the school actually let her do that while she worked there, and other teachers too, like other people who worked there. Um, so she had a whole bunch of geraniums on the lockers and other plants in like the library and other rooms. And so usually once a week, maybe twice a week, we would go through and water everything. Um, I know once a year we did a penny war for charity, um, where everyone just brings in like change, and whichever like I think homeroom is what they were going off. Like the last class of the day, whoever brings in the most wins. Um, they get to like pie whoever they want in the face, like teacher or something like that. Depends on the year that you do it. And then the money goes to whatever charity was decided or something. Um, but I know I got to be not only participating in the actual donation of the money, but also the only like student actually counting the money. Um, so I got to sit in a back room with my grandma, grandpa, and occasionally a neighbor lady, um, just counting pennies and nickels, dimes, quarters, occasionally paper money, but usually just change. Bullshit and talking about politics, yard sales, plants, sometimes electronics, but whatever comes up. Lots of old people, like back in my day stuff. So I got to hear a lot of the old time stories, which was cool. Um, I do miss my grandparents. Um, I I wish I thought that coming out to them was the right choice. Um, but with everything that I have seen from at least my grandma and knowing that my grandpa is putting everything he has into her, I don't think I can do that to them. They gave me everything they had. And I think now it's time for the other people in their life to give them something else because they've been standing aside saying they're not going to do it, they're ignoring it, and they just want to burn it down. When my whole life it's been my responsibility to deal with it. It's been up to me to clean up their mess, to help them out, to at one point pretty much take my wife and cats and move in with them in their over hoarded house because they needed it. And then they said no, they don't want us there. Um, so it's time for the other people in their life to step up. I have done so much, and I need to start looking out for me. And I'm sorry.